Okay, before I get started, I'm going to go ahead and read this. Warning, Title 17, USC. This right here is for fair use. There may be graphic things that'll show up in the video. Warning, what they say? Parental advisement. Parental discretion is advised. All right, I'm finna go ahead and press start on this video, and I'll be right back with you.
Again.
Do they ever arrest this 14-year-old?
They never arrest him. They never charge him. They never cite him.
Dude. It's like it never happened?
It's like it never happened. And it looks and feels like contrition. Because they know, because they shot him unjustifiably.
It's now been a year and a half since the shooting, and the police department has yet to even start the disciplinary process. Last month, the Cook County State's Attorney's Office decided not to charge Sergeant Langen. The Sauk Village Police Chief says he was waiting on that decision before taking any action. Dave Savini, CBS 2 Investigators.
I posted a clip of a 1999 ABC News story on voice recordings preserved by the Library of Congress. These recordings were actual voices of Black Americans who were slaves in the United States. The video got over 10 million views and 500,000 comments, but YouTube forced me to take it down in order to stay in line with their new policies. So I'm now reposting it with a brief commentary and explanation. I'll have more thoughts at the end of the recording, so I'd like you to weigh in on the conversation once again. Thank you.
But John Henry Falk may have experienced the most profound effect. He was a graduate student when he interviewed the former slaves, including the two women you hear in this broadcast. Himself interviewed just before he died in 1979, Falk was going on about how he believed in giving blacks the right to go to school, giving them the right to vote, giving them the right to go into anything they qualified for. And then he said he experienced an epiphany.
I was sitting out on a wagon tongue with this old black man, and was telling him what a different kind of white man I was. I remember him looking at me very sadly and kind of sweetly and condescending and said, "You know, you still got the disease, honey. I know you think you're cured, but you're not cured. You can't give me the right to be a human being. I'm born with that right. Now, you can keep me from having that. If you've got all the policemen and all the jobs on your side, you can deprive me of it. But you can't give it to me, because I was born with it just like you was." And my God, it had a profound effect on me. I was furious with him. But the more I reflected on it, the more profoundly it affected me. And I realized this was where it really was.
Tell you the truth, when I think of it today, I don't know how I'm living.
I remember that just as well look like to me, I can.
Been slaves all our lives. My mother was a slave, my sister was a slave, father was a slave.
They know nothing about reading right there. All that I know, they teach you to mind your master and your missus. Mama them didn't know where to go. You see, after she would go, just like he turned something out, you know, didn't know where to go.
They are haunting voices from the past, not actors reading a script or scholars reading a text, but the actual voices of men and women, Americans, who were born in slavery.
My name is Fountain Hughes. I was born in Charlottesville, Virginia. My grandfather belonged to Thomas Jefferson. My grandfather was 115 years old when he died. And now I am 101 years old. Some people didn't have no beds when they were slaves. People slept on the floor. Sat up here, sat up there. Just like a lot of wild people. We didn't know nothing. Didn't like to look at no book.
Harriet Smith, remembering what she saw as a small girl during the final days of the Civil War.
Most people have no clue that in 2023, the best way to make money on Amazon is not
We said all that, stood on that picket fence all day long, seeing them soldiers going back to San Antonio and different places. Colored soldiers in droves. That's right along by our house. Our home is a two-story house, a white folks.
These recorded memories were among thousands of interviews done with ex-slaves in the 1930s and 40s.
Can you remember slavery days very well?
Of course, I remember all our white folks, and all the names of them, all the children. Call every one of the children's names.
Who did you belong to?
Jim Bunton, the baby boy.
The results of these digitally enhanced recordings are arresting, almost unbelievable. The idea of hearing the voices of actual slaves from the plantations of the Old South is as powerful, as startling really, as if you could hear Abraham Lincoln or Robert E. Lee speak. Listen again to Fountain Hughes, who was born in 1848.
We were slaves. We belonged to people. They sell us like they sell horses and cows and hogs and all like that. Have an auction bench and put you up on the bench and bid on you, the same as bidding on cattle, you know.
Much of what these three former slaves say may at first seem unremarkable. Much of what they say may surprise and upset, and their calm demeanor is at odds with the evil and violence we associate with slavery. Here is 91-year-old Texan Laura Smalley talking in the 1940s about the outcome of a tussle between two women, one black, one white, one slave, one mistress. The mistress tried to slap the slave, but the black woman pushed her into a chair. Laura Smalley was a girl at the time, but she remembers vividly what happened to the black woman when the master came home.
Well, they taken that poor old woman, cat in the peach orchard and whipped her. And, just tied her hand this way, around the peach orchard tree. I remember that just as well, looked like to me, I can, and round the tree and whipped her. And, well, she couldn't do nothing but just kick her feet, just kick her feet. But it just had her clothes off down to her waist, Just didn't have her plumb naked, but they had her clothes down to her waist. And every now and then they'd whip her, and then snuff the pipe out on her, snuff pipe out on her. The embers in the pipe, where you ever see the pipe smoking.
Blow them out on her?
Mm-hmm.
Good Lord, have mercy.
The plantation on which Smalley was a slave sounds brutal. She recalls scrambling with other children for food from a huge wooden tray, like a hog trough.
All of them, would get around that tray with spoons and eat, something like mush or soup or something like that. And all them children get around there and just eat.
Fountain Hughes tells his interviewer about the relentless round of work for him on a Virginia plantation.
Night never comes out. You have nothing to do. Time to cut tobacco. If they want you to cut all night long out in the field, you cut. And if they want you to hang all night long, you hang tobacco. It didn't matter about you're tired. Being tired, you're afraid to say you're tired.
It was cotton, not tobacco, that solidified slavery, though. The invention of the cotton gin at the end of the 18th century made its processing easy, but the crop still needed enormous amounts of unskilled labor. Control of the slave and his labor through laws and regulations became paramount. Fountain Hughes talks about one of those controls, the pass system.
Now, I couldn't go from here across the street, or I couldn't go to nobody's house without I have a note or something from my master. And if I had that pass, that was what we call a pass. If I had that pass, I could go wherever he sent me, and I'd have to be back. When whoever he sent me to, they'd give me another pass, and I'd bring that back, so to show how long.
Even emancipation didn't truly free the slaves. Freedom freed slaves for more travail.
And so, family, the Yalad that did this video, he asked us to give our thoughts on the video, and I told him underneath his video that I would go live and speak about the video that he had to re-upload, because he said that YouTube, according to their new policies, they had him removed it, so he opened it back up with a commentary explaining the purpose of the video. But there's a doctrine going around here that slavery never happened, and that we was already over here in America, and discounting that would discount everything that that these eyewitnesses, and more than one, have spoken about this situation. My grandmother, her name was Annie Ivory. Her husband's name was Willie Ivory. And my grandmother used to sit down with us and talk to us about how slavery was. And I remember this one time I was sitting down with her. She didn't let us sit on her settee. And I remember grandmother telling me about her mother, because she said her mother was born into slavery. And she said she was born a free slave. And she said they would pick cotton. And she told me about a story her mother told her about how the slave master, because I asked my grandmother, Grandma, do we have any mixed children in our family? Do we have any white people in there? And she told me a story about her grandmother, Shalom Ach Moshe and Achwathia Naomi. And she told me a story about her grandmother, well, her mother. And she said that her mama say that there was, you know, them big old stank worms inside of the ground. They fish with them. I don't know what they call them. They're not like the regular fishing worms. It's like the big white one with the black end on this. I don't know what they call them, a grub. She said that one day grandmother, my great-great-great-grandmother, because the grandmother that told me the story was my great-grandmother. So one day my great-great-great-grandmother told my grandmother, she said, baby, that man told me, he said, I tell you what, I won't touch you. He said, but I'm gonna give you an option. She said, the slave master asked her, say, you know what? I tell you what, if you got two options. You can eat this worm right here, or you can lay down with me and we can have a baby. My grandmother told me, Shalom, Chef Mac. Thank you for coming, Mashpaka. Grandmother told me, she said her mother told her, I tell you what, the slave master told us, I tell you what, if you lay down with me, you won't have to eat the worm, and I'll make sure that your time won't be hard out there on the cotton field. Grandmother told me, she said grandmama took that worm, and she said that was the best. Mama told her, say that was the best worm she ever ate in her whole life. She said she ate him all the way up too. And she said her breath smelled like that worm all day. And I sat there and laughed, but grandmother was making a point. Everybody on the plantation, you know, one mixing and everything. Now, so there's a lot of things that's going on. You got to go to your elders so that you can know how things really was. And so listening to this video and seeing them houses right there, it reminds me of the houses where I grew up. It was some old houses out there that was finally taken down. Even the Civic Center. It was an old Civic Center in Polk County, where I grew up at, Polk County, Florida. And at the Civic Center, they had the black side and the white side inside of the doctor's office. At the bank, they had a black side and they had a white side at the bank. They had a old rusty water fountain and a clean water fountain, and the city wanted to tear it down. And my auntie Dot, She made, that was Coretta Scott homegirl, my auntie Dot. She say that they fought hard as they can and went to every business meeting to make sure that they don't tear down those monuments, you know, because when people remove monuments, they could pretend like history never occurred, you know, to give a covering, because there are some people that's in the business of trying to cover over history. I'm finna let more of this video play, and I thank Yahweh for this Yalad, which means stranger, for this Yalad for making this video. It's not a bad word. Yalad is a stranger. All right, I'm finna let it play.
The end of the Civil War found many cast adrift without skills and no place to go. And the Yankees who freed them weren't always seen as benevolent liberators.
I remember when the Yankees come along and took all the good horses and took sold up all the meat and flour and sugar and stuff out in the river and let it go down the river. And they know the people wouldn't have nothing to live on, but they done that.
The ex-slaves left one hell for another, perhaps an even more dangerous one. No longer property, they didn't have the protections afforded property.
When we were slaves, we couldn't do that, see? And if we got free, we didn't know nothing to do. And my mother, she hunted places and bound us out for $1 a month. But we didn't have no property, we didn't have no home.
Okay, and what we call that is racism. We gave it a name. Because under this system, an elder told me, I can't remember his name, but the elder said, I think his name was, let me look it up while I'm talking. But the elder said that in this system, they not going to make the name up for you. You got to make it up for yourself. You know, they don't do stuff like that for you. The elder say, oh, and thank you, Sister Tracy, T. Tracy. But the elder say you got to make things up. So that's what our ancestors were doing. They didn't make, what is their definition of a whole nation that don't know who they is? What do you call that? So when we say you woke, they transform that to something else. But being awakened to your identity is written in the Bible in the last day. And the elder name is Neely Fuller. It has a channel up there of a brother posting up his videos. If y'all willing, I'll post that to y'all in the comment section before I get off of here. But this is the things that, you know, when people want to deny reality and not try to do right, they'll deny you, and you will actually take it as facts, because you can't fathom in your mind why someone will tell a great lie like that, like your slavery, your captivity never existed. You know what I'm saying? So you have to be careful of stuff like that. And I believe that what this Yalad did is a very honorable thing by posting up the history of this. That's the link to Elder Neely Fuller's new video that he did. He don't have the support that he deserves, but you know, y'all gives us what he wants us to have at the time he wants us to have it, and perhaps y'all doing that for his own reason, you know. So I'm finna go ahead and play this, and I'll be back with you after the stranger get done giving his commentary on the video that he reposted and took a strike for us, Mosh, because he took a strike to keep the history out there. And that porch right there looked just like my Aunt Bessie made porch right there. All right, I'm finna go ahead and play this.
Nowhere, nothing. We didn't have nothing on it, just like your cattle. We just turned out and get along the best you could.
In Texas, the slaves weren't told they were free until 2 months after the war ended. Smalley remembers that her masters gave the slaves a dinner, and then they were free.
I don't know how the other side of the folks know freedom. We didn't know. They just thought, we're just feeding us, Some of them didn't know where to go. You see, after freedom broke, just like he turned something out, Didn't know where to go. That's just where they stayed. Didn't know where to go. Turned us out just like, you turn out cattle.
In the narratives, the slaves used an interesting phrase for the end of slavery. They say, when the break came. Good times, easy times were not at hand. The trials for millions of black Americans didn't end in 1865. They continued. Laura Smalley and her family became sharecroppers. Harriet Smith's first husband was killed by whites during the Reconstruction, probably because of his political organizing. Fountain Hughes went north to Baltimore and worked at numerous jobs, including hauling manure. Not an enviable job, but it was the job of a free man.
So there's a few points I'd like to make. First of all, John Henry Falk died in 1990, not 1979. Second, the Texas slaves were freed 2 years after the end of slavery, not 2 months. It just goes to show you that mainstream media didn't and maybe still doesn't care about getting the facts correct. Also, the statement about former slaves being unskilled is not true and a bit condescending. These interviews were part of the Federal Writers Project, which interviewed a lot of people after the Great Depression in the United States. The interviewers were discovering that a lot of the black people they were interviewing were former slaves. So the Slave Narrative Project was an afterthought of the Federal Writers Project and defunded a few years later. It pains me to think of all the stories we missed out on. Leave your comments. Thanks for listening.
We were slaves. We belonged to people. They sell us like yourself.
It's time for me to get...
Time for me to take this down now. All right, so family, y'all see? So there is a section of people that's in authority that's added to rewrite any racial history. I'll tell you one more story my grandmother told me on my daddy's side. This grandmother is still living. Her name is Catherine Kennedy. Her husband's name is Ernest Lee Kennedy. And I have an uncle named Robert Lee Kennedy. Okay? And my daddy's name is Calvin Lee Sr. And I'm a junior. That's why I named myself Yaquaba. I surnamed myself that. And I just wrote it like that so y'all can see it because it's originally in ancient Hebrew. Okay. My grandmother told me that the church that they at right now first started out on the other side of the street. And I don't know if I told y'all this before, but on the side of the street where they said that the church was originally at, there was a house on that street. And my great grandmother, Annie Ivory, she stayed up down 6th Street. I ain't gonna tell y'all y'all can, but the house burnt down. And the city took the house and added interest rates and stuff. It took the land after the house burnt down. But anyway, on that street down below on 7th Street, where the church used to be, there was a house over there. It looked like an old abandoned house. And we stayed right around the block over there one time. And we called that Mr. Fred Apartments. And then we seen that big old possum that snuck in the house. We called it the rat house because we thought that was a rat. My mama jumped on the everybody was jumping and hiding on chairs and stuff when they seen the big old thing. My daddy killed them with his hand. And my daddy was so strong he would be able to pick up the back, them real heavy cars like the Chevrolets. Used to pick them up. But anyway, just showing y'all briefly about my daddy and them. But on that street before we went up in there, there was a big old like a house that looked like a duplex, and then there was a house on the side that was like ran down and in the woods. That house it said when I learned why we didn't like to walk on that street and didn't know about that house. There was a lady that stayed there. They called the Red Devil. Now this is before I was born, and they say that she used to have all them children in there. She used to adopt them and or whatever, and say they used to torture the children in that house. And I remember walking around there, and I think it was a graveyard over there, and there was a swamp on the side over there too, where the alligators and stuff be. And I just remember us being timid of walking down that street, and we never knew the story of the lady that they called the Red Devil. And so there are things that subconscious memories and things of your ancestors that it's like it's a part of you. And when people act like your parents don't have the ability to pass down past traumas into your present, it shows that they don't know what they're talking about. Because even when it come down to dealing with police officers and stuff, on how, look at the children, look even at the animals. Animals show a difference in behavior. When they have puppies, the puppies act a certain way. So we have to learn our history and not allow people to cause us to feel like we're passing down anti-Semitic beliefs or breaking community guidelines by trying to pass down oral traditions. So that's what I want to bring out today. And I dropped the link for any one of y'all that would like to come up and speak about the video of Elder Langston Hughes and the elderly mother that was speaking about her experience on the plantation. And if you say elder for them, you say Zaquan, and for the Scrange you say Yalad. All right. And like the guy stated, they got the facts wrong. So you will have to go in and do your own study and research. I asked my grandmother, Catherine Kennedy, I asked her, Grandma, can you please tell me, are we Native Americans? Because I was willing to accept whatever it is. Are we Native American? What tribe we come from? And Grandma say that we are not the original people that was here, but she said that the Native Americans would adopt us, or when we was free, we would be named after them. And so, like my grandfather, he would be, if he was freed in Florida, he would be called a Seminole, and if you was freed in another place, you would be called another name. But when they put us on them ships, they knew exactly who they was going for. You know what I'm saying? Because the Dahomey Kingdom and all them, they were not illiterate people where they couldn't figure out who is they people. They're not finna give you their cousin. That's what brother mean in Hebrew, cousin. They're not finna give you their cousins, which means the people of their nation, they brothers. They were slave catchers, and that's what they did. A lot of tribes were in the business of catching slaves, and they weren't trying to break down their kingdom. So they were trying to get the people who were foreigners in that land, like what they say, the Falasha that live in Kawash. The Falasha, they call them the foreigners in the land of Ethiopia. And I'm not saying that that's what the Ethiopians is doing right now. I don't know. But what I'm trying to tell you is that there's a difference between a person that come in the land running from slave catchers and a slave catcher itself. So fam, I'm about to get off of here, and I just want y'all to go and do some more fact checking on history, and let's come back on here and discuss it. And if Yahweh say that the day of vengeance is set in his heart, he will not forget. You don't have to forget anything either. Shalom to the hearers and the keepers of the word of Allahayim. I pray that you keep your head up. B'Hashamka Yahabashai Aman. Yahweh.